Go.
I don't think it's ever quite a relief to be on a movie set. I always love to be on location. I think there's an energy that comes from being actually in the jungle. But there's no question with a movie like Jurassic Park, eventually you're going to have to be on stages. It's just impossible to have these huge, huge pieces of equipment, and you need the infrastructure in place to keep them going.
Yeah.
Action on the actor. So we opted to build big jungles on the stages at Universal so that we could do rain, nighttime, and not have to worry about all of the stuff that happens working in a natural environment.
It was great being on the stages because they were recreating through our set design beautiful sections of jungle, and it actually marries quite well into what we shot in Hawaii.
Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
I storyboarded every shot of Jurassic Park. I came up with all my shots. I had a little lipstick camera. It was called a lipstick cam, about this big. I put it on a stick, and I had a model car and a model T-Rex, and I had the kids in the car. And I actually found my angles by watching a television monitor. And I'd move the camera around until I liked an angle, and then we would record my camera move. And I put the whole sequence together that way on video, gave it to Phil Tippett. Then he did an entire stop action carbon copy of the angles I was finding with the live cam.
We had the storyboards, two-dimensional storyboards, and they were very inspirational, done by David Lowery, just a beautiful job. But because of the complexity of Jurassic Park, and because there were so many disciplines being involved that had to be married seamlessly, Steven thought it might be a good idea to do animatics. And so we at Tippett Shop did the animatics for two sequences. One was the Raptor kitchen. The other was the T-Rex main road sequence.
There had to be performance crossover between the computer graphics and the Stan Winston live action characters. So coming up with, we call it the Dinosaur Bible, that just showed some of the basic performance parameters. Here's what the thing looks like walking. And here's what the thing looks like running. You know, here's what it does when it leaps in and looks over here. And
all of this came together as a common reference, a template for everyone on set.
So when we went and shot Stan's dinosaurs, there was nothing wasted. There was not a single shot that I was able to capture that I didn't use in the movie. And then we would just shoot a plate for a shot that ILM would later put in of the full-size digital dinosaurs. So in that sense, I follow the storyboards religiously.
You feel that?
One of the things that Steven is so good at is finding images that represent the story, the emotion the audience is supposed to be experiencing. One of the great ones in Jurassic Park is the glass of water that ripples when the dinosaur is approaching.
I was at work, and Steven calls into the office, and he goes, I'm in the car, Earth, Wind, and Fire is playing, and my mirror is shaking. That's what we need to do. He goes, we need to do that. We need to shake the mirror, and then I want to do something with the water. So the mirror shaking was really very easy. Put a little vibrating motor and shook it. But the water was another story. It was a very difficult thing to do. You couldn't do it. I had everybody working on it. And finally, messing around with a guitar one night, I set a glass and started playing notes on a guitar and got to a right frequency, a right note, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do.
On some levels, 90% of the feeling of the mass and weight of the T-Rex was Gary Rydstrom.
Maybe it's the power trying to come back on.
As the sound guy, I loved the introduction of the T-Rex. It's like a sonic boom. So we're hearing this thing coming for the longest time. And when he finally shows up, the footsteps are used for them. We recorded people cutting down huge redwood trees. The hit of the tree against the ground had this weight and sounded perfect for T-Rex footsteps.
higher, the light. Hold the light higher.
Turn it off! I'm sorry! I'm sorry!
1, 2, 3. Cut. Good. Perfect. Excellent.
I mean, sure, it was challenging, but I was never having a terrible time or even losing my voice, interestingly enough, and I got so many questions after that. How could you keep screaming, Ariana? I was okay.
We're going to dedicate the scream to you.
Please.
Because you did the first good scream ever in the history of movies.
Is
ever.
that right?
Ever.
Did I get credit for that? Isn't that amazing?
You should be part of the Foley tracks all around Hollywood. The best scream ever.
They used it a lot.
I think she studied you somehow because she's got the kind of range.
Okay, Steven.
Okay, and Lex, and action. Okay, cut.
Cut it.
That's good. That's
Yeah. Seeing the T-Rex for the first time, wow. I mean, what an impact. The size of the teeth, the way the eyes could move, it was incredible.
It's one thing seeing a great big model, but a model that moves and breathes and works with you was something else.
You can build a dinosaur and make it look real, but the people that bring it to life are the puppeteers, and they were the unsung heroes of Jurassic Park 1, 2, and 3.
And we had worked out this great telemetry system where we had almost like a replica of like the head of it here down to the tail. And it was exactly in 1/5 scale, so all the movement that we would do would translate to the big one in real time.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
It was pretty groundbreaking because it was a real hands-on puppeteering performance. All the puppeteers, we really had to rehearse and become in sync before we started filming. You know, everyone had to know what they were doing and to work in concert.
Unfortunately, I didn't know you couldn't pour water on the dinosaurs, so I suddenly decided to do the entire main road attack in rain. And Stan did his funny clearing of his throat. You know, I didn't exactly design these things for water. And I said, well, Stan, what happens if we get them wet? He said, nobody knows. And I don't want to find out. And I said, well, Stan, this sequence will be so much better in the rain because we won't see the T-Rex that well. We'll be in the car. There'll be water running down the windows. The T-Rex will look into the window. You'll sort of see him, but you'll also see a lot of rain coming down. We need to do this whole sequence in the rain. And so Stan said, well, look, hey, I'm a gambler. Let's try.
Hey, camera mark.
The way it was calibrated, it was for its motion so that it would move properly and smooth. It was calculated on the weight that it was. So when the rain bars came on and it started getting wet, the skin, which was foam rubber, in some areas was this thick, started soaking up water. So then the T-Rex weighed a lot more than what it was originally built for, and all the tolerances were now off.
I knew something was wrong with the T-Rex when the T-Rex was suddenly actually shaking the way you shake when you're cold. And the T-Rex would actually just sit there and vibrate like that. And suddenly all of Stan's kids would run in with big chamois he used at the car wash, and they're slapping the rain off the T-Rex and trying to dry it off.
My God, that was a bit of a nightmare. But fortunately, we overcame that.
All the main dinosaurs are usually a combination of different animals that provide different elements of the sound. So the T-Rex roar is layered for different animals taking care of different pitches. So the deep elements are crocodiles and lions. I wanted to not use lions because they're cliche, but you gotta use lions. Lions have that great attack. But the key individual sound for the T-Rex roar that we found was a baby elephant. He did the most amazing screech.
Hey! Jeff's part was written kind of nerdy mathematician who is always chatting up girls, annoys me because he's chatting up my girlfriend, you know. And then at the first sign of trouble runs away. Well, Jeff turned up and He didn't look nerdy at all. He was magnificent. He'd buffed up. He was Superman.
And in that scene, it was written in the script that my character does what something similar to the lawyer who kind of just freaks out, is so frightened that he escapes to save himself, and that my character does the same thing. I said, Steven, on the day I ran it by him, then on the day I said, maybe it might be more delicious and offer a little variety if I can do something kind of heroic, like get the dinosaur to chase me so that it diverts attention away from Sam Neill and the kids so that they can get away.
Next thing I know, I'm up there with the flare, and Jeff's there with the flare too.
Ian, freeze! Get the can! That's the way we did it. I had a little impact on that. I like that.
It was a very different character in the end. He gets heroically wounded.
But in any case, it was always determined that the lawyer was going to die.
No.
We have nothing against lawyers, by the way.
Thank you.
And cut. Very good. Cut.
What species is this?
It's a velociraptor.
You bred raptors.
I didn't know anything about velociraptors until Michael Crichton introduced me to his velociraptors. And Michael did tons of research, as he always does for all of his projects. So he really wanted those velociraptors to be smart, like dolphins with claws and teeth and rending power, and he really created these awesome villains.
I will never forget when we did the scene in the basement when I turned the lights back on. And this guy comes out at me, and I turn and see him.
Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business.
I was screaming for my life. And obviously, yes, you're allowing your imagination to be stretched in terms of it being real, but it was very easy to be terrified.
And then, of course, the velociraptors. I mean, when I saw those for the first time, I was just like, we have our villain, because that was just the scariest looking thing I've ever seen.
I didn't want these kids attacked in the jungle. I wanted these kids being attacked in the world of the familiar. And so it was very important to me that there were little iconic references to things we can see in our own homes in that sequence to put those kids in jeopardy.
In the kitchen scene, Stan and his guys created the most extraordinary raptors, and they operated very much like puppets.
The raptor was real personal for me. I was in a suit, as Crash was too, but I'm the one that comes into the kitchen and it hoots for the other one to call, and then Crash comes around the corner. So we trained to be in these suits, which were pretty crazy, actually.
John Rosengrant and I were both, tucked inside these things, and it was exhilarating but torture at the same time. It was kind of scary because there's that claustrophobic kind of feeling, and there's a little monitor in your face, and that would go out, and so you'd be blind and just kind of hoping you're doing the right thing.
But when we had events happen, like when the raptor had to leap up onto the counter, that was where we knew that if we could somehow find that motion in computer-generated graphics, it would look that much more real.
And so that's a great sequence showing basically all the tools working, every one of them.
But the raptor was one of the more fun creatures to do because he's such a bad guy. And like the baby elephant part of the T-Rex, the key sound for the raptor turned out to be a dolphin.
And these are different dolphins up the keyboard.
And by adding those to something low frequency, so we use walruses mostly. Use the walrus for the low frequency and the boy dolphin for the high frequency, and that became the attack scream of the raptor.
The shot I love the most is the shot where the dinosaur thinks it's Lex, which is a meal, climbing into a small compartment, and that the audience thinks that Lex is exposed to this attack. In fact, it's a reflection. Those were the fun discoveries I was making in the storyboarding process. Because when I'm storyboarding, I just make up a lot of stuff, which is fun to do.
Every surface in that kitchen was reflective. So it was a very, very meticulous process of putting lights to create the mood, and then putting up large black cloths to hide the reflection of the light.
I remember being on set for the kitchen scene and looking behind one of the counters or whatever and seeing about 15 people, all operating a different part of the Raptor. It was like a symphony.
During the scene with the raptors in the kitchen, Steven, what he wanted was for me to absolutely let loose, go crazy when I was running towards the door to push it closed and save my brother. He said, scare us.
Well, what was interesting is with the new technology, it allowed you to do facial replacement. And when Lex fell through the vent system and was holding on, that was actually the stunt person. And then they filmed Ariana Richards looking up, and they put that in and replaced the stunt double's head.
I like the juxtaposition of the fact that dinosaurs have come back to life and they're roving within a kind of museum of natural history. So you've got the fossil record, and then you've got the evidence of the hubris of science, dominating and perhaps wiping out all memory of the fossil record at the very end.
There's a shot of me sort of hanging from a skeleton, and I remember Steven crawling down on the floor and looking up at me as I was hanging from this, and he was like, 4 hours of hanging from a bone. You wanted to be an actress.
And then the sequence at the end, I remember the bones are supposed to be falling down on me, and they did that reverse, so I had to actually act in reverse, which was the whole new thing for me. Then I remember watching it in the movie theater and saying, hey, look at that, it works.
We went to a bowling alley and recorded the impact of the ball on the pins really close, and it made this clacky sound that was great. And it turns out, sounds perfectly like fossil bones collapsing. So the raptor is a teenage dolphin and the T-Rex is a baby elephant and the collapsing fossils is a bowling alley. So if you think of it that way, it has no impact at all. So don't think of it that way.
Originally, the raptor was going to have his kind of final say-so in the movie.
And the raptors go up and they shake all these bones, and for some reason all the bones fall down and a rib goes through one of the raptors, and the raptors in the teeth of the Tyrannosaurus skeleton. It falls to the ground and it crushes them.
We were so taken by how powerful the scenes were dramatically. Whenever the T-Rex was in them, he was like our star. That Steven called Rick Carter over, and we started to talk about how we were going to keep the power of the T-Rex alive throughout the end of the movie.
He said, I've got to have the T-Rex back. And I said, well, how does it get in? Now, I was thinking, how does it get in the building? What he said was, well, Grant's backing up, and the raptors are coming forward, and one of the raptors jumps in the air, and this T-Rex comes in and grabs it. And I just cracked up because he described how the T-Rex got into his movie, not how it got in the building, from the top of the frame.
You just needed something like that, something like really big. So he had it all worked out, how like the Tyrannosaurus would come in like the cavalry and save the day.
I wanted the movie to end with the T-Rex having killed the last raptor, doing that heroic King Kong-esque roar. And I thought it would be great to let the banner, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, fall, because it was an irony.
I think it's a great ending to us be saved by one of the things that's trying to eat us.
I would have to say that saying goodbye at the end was the only part that was sad, because we had grown close, and what more enjoyable thing could I have been doing but going to the set every day and working with Steven and all these great people and creatures for all those months. It was a magical time.